Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, we made it this week. Boy, it is just getting crazy. And Ron, I blame you and your kind too. You have all these crazy Jewish holidays, so it's like, oh, that's two lawyers out the window these weeks, and I guess it's happening again next week.
Next week, I mean, today is regular, but last week, right? Joe and I were unavailable, and next week and the week after we're off. So I figured I'd drop in today so people don't forget me.
That's awesome. Now, question on that. Exactly how many damn holidays do you guys have?
Well, they're for all practical purposes, in terms of biblical holidays, you have the two, what people call the high holidays, right? Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And then there are the three pilgrimage festivals. Those are the times of year when, in ancient times, people would all go to Jerusalem and bring offerings. So that's Sukkot or Sukkot, which is coming up this week, and it has a festival day at the beginning and a festival day at the end. And outside of Israel, it's always double. There are 2 days. There's Passover. Everyone's heard of Passover. And then there's a short one, which is just 1 day / 2 days, which is Shavuot, Feast of Tabernacles. Oh no, this is Tabernacles. Sukkot is Sukkot, Shavuot, which is the it's the harvest. No, this is the harvest festival. Whatever. Shavuot.
Even you can't keep up.
What is the basic answer is 5, but the way they fall out for all practical purposes, like days off the calendar, you're talking about really only 9 days a year. Okay. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, to Sukkot, Shavuot, Passover. Yeah, nine days. It's just that.
Okay, I think
they seem to always pop up. It's like Jerry Seinfeld years ago had a joke. Are the Jewish holidays early this year or late? Why are they never on time?
Well, and if you combine it with the federal holidays, though, you guys are doing all right. I mean, think about it.
Thank God, we're doing all right.
All right, fabulous. Okay, I don't know what is going on. I pulled some basic cases this week. I think that maybe we could start off with, everybody's favorite super mayor. It seems like a gift that keeps on giving. Nate, what's going on with your girlfriend Tiffany?
Well, so there was a couple of rulings with this judge who has decided. So she started appointing people to various positions because everyone got indicted and all this other stuff. So as the police chief got indicted, he lost his job. So she has to appoint another police chief. But in Dalton, their government is set up kind of like the federal government, where the chief executive appoints and the legislature gives advice and consent. So she appointed them, but the legislature didn't give advice and consent. So she said, well, I'm going to appoint them anyway and let them work.
In this case, it's the board, not the legislature, though, right?
The board is the legislature, but yes, the board.
Okay.
It's the city council, essentially, but they're called the board. So they didn't consent. So she had the person work anyway. And the judge threw it out and said, no, you can't just do that. You have to follow the local laws. So then the person kept coming to work anyway. So the judge then said, well, if your guy keeps coming to work pretending he's the police chief, we're going to hold you in contempt, and you, the mayor, in contempt. And we're going
how would that work? I mean, both of you help me out, because technically, if he has not been approved, could he not be breaking the law for impersonating a police officer?
Well, I'm not sure.
What if he tried to enforce something? He's not, he's not legitimate, and he pulls you over and he tickets you or whatever. I mean,
was he fired from the police force, or was he fired as the police chief?
Hired.
He was never the police chief. So the police chief that was fired is gone. This was somebody else she wanted to appoint to be police chief. So that person, and she swore that person in herself. So she's like, I'm swearing you in. But legally, it's like having a Supreme Court justice be sworn in and it doesn't go through Congress. So that's kind of what happened here. So the judge says, number one, that person's not the police chief, or and the other people, because they weren't approved, so they don't have any authority. So in every case, if that is the case now, I would suggest maybe that person could be held accountable for.
And he has to worry about whether you would be indemnified or whether there would be any level of immunity.
Yeah, because he's not a police officer, essentially. So it's an interesting little quirk, but that's essentially what's going on. So, and the obvious regular madness that happens in Dalton.
Well, and okay, question two. Now, I can't keep track, but she seems to have horrible taste in personnel she wants to hire too, or at least their resumes are odd. Is that police chief the one that was relieved from multiple positions in a high school or something, or is this another person that she tried to hire who was accused of SA high schoolers?
Yeah, so she tried to hire they call him the city manager, the person who runs the day-to-day operations. And that guy, that guy he was fired from his last job teaching at a school for trying to groom a 15-year-old girl with insidious intent. That's what they put on his resignation, not his resignation, his termination letter, and allegedly called the girl his girlfriend and threatened to beat up her boyfriend. It was like a lot of stuff, and he was like arrested multiple times. He's just an all-around bad guy. But the super
did she also have an inspector? Yeah,
the inspector who was a child blankist, and he had done 25 years for a child blank. So yeah, so she this
is the company she keeps. This is who she hires. I mean, Nate, you can't make this up.
You cannot make this. It's insane stuff, but the more interesting part about this whole thing is with the FBI, when someone is doing something so crazy, where is the FBI in all this? Right?
Yeah, I've asked that before too, Nate, because for one, she's allegedly, I'm not going to go too far down the path. She's allegedly bled this city or this township dry. Like they had a $3 million surplus, and now they're like down a couple $1 million.
Yeah.
At what point do you at least freeze accounts to where she can't continue to harm these people, because they're being harmed every day she's in office and being crazy? They're being harmed. At what point do you stop that bleeding and do some triage?
I think the problem is that she does have the legal authority to be in that position, and they tried to kick her out. But the problem is that even though they tried to kick her out, it didn't work because it was thrown out on a technicality. So you kind of just have to deal with it until you can legally remove her. That's either through an indictment from the FBI or something else. And right now, that's just not happening.
See, but that just seems crazy to me, because again, it seems so obvious that the behavior is at a minimum against the will of her public, who did vote to recall her, and then quite potentially fraudulent. And to me, it's like, I don't think anybody has authority to have fraudulent, to be a fraud. or am I wrong?
You're 110% right. But the fact of the matter is, she is the elected mayor. She does have she legally can exercise those authorities, and she has she's done it. I'm just shocked that it's crazy that the FBI caught Eric Adams before they caught this woman who's openly doing crazy, doing this stuff. And another thing, I also find it fascinating that this town didn't realize how bad their laws were until you had this problem. Because how can you not kick someone out?
Yeah,
with an impeachment or something when they obviously.
But shouldn't that be a matter of state law? I mean, a city certainly can't go ahead and decide we're going to have a charter that makes it impossible. That makes it impossible to get rid of a city manager or an employee or a mayor who's stealing all the money. I mean, there are limits to how much local rule is allowed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, everyone, you've alluded to this in a few of your videos, Nate. There's the 800-pound gorilla here is the reluctance of the state of Illinois to do anything about this. You have to imagine that if Illinois wanted this problem to be solved, it has the tools.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even want to investigate. Oh, FBI is handling this. We're good.
The governor said that.
General?
Yeah.
The governor said that. This is the governor. The governor said, "Oh yeah, don't worry. It's somebody else's problem." And when it's somebody else's problem, that's when it becomes a real problem. You know what I mean?
But then that's a great question. Whose problem is it technically? Because Ron, you bring up a good point. I would think that the state attorney general, these are residents of the state as well as the township. So these are state residents that are being abused by the authority in their town. Haven't other governors come down or attorney generals come down against local officials in different townships or cities in the past?
Yes, but in this particular case, as the governor said, we don't want to duplicate anyone's work. The FBI is looking into it. Or Life is looking into it. Why should we have the state police look into it? That type of thing. So,
how about you just freeze everything? I mean, like I said, that's my biggest issue. Is I get it that it takes time. That they want to put a case together. They want to, tie up all loose ends, whatever, get people to flip, roll, all that. But again, people are suffering, and you and we've talked, Nate. I've said I feel like she's going to make it all the way through her term before she's even arrested. It's getting close, isn't it?
Yes. It's a shame because it really shows you how dysfunctional government can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's no way someone could be openly just doing this type of stuff, and you can't get them out. Literally, that's what it is. You cannot get them out. And the wild part about this is not just Dalton. The town right next to them, their mayor is indicted by the feds. There's another town. It's like there's another town where the clerk has now been indicted. And it's crazy. It's like there's something in the water in Illinois because it's like everybody's those towns are crazy.
Illinois has a pretty long history of that, like Louisiana. I mean, both of them have some long-standing traditions of corruption, the daily machine, lots of things, but.
And then people think about this too. She's making $300,000 a year, and she's being evicted from her apartment because she can't pay $1,500 rent.
Well, that's because everybody else is supposed to pay for her. But okay, one question. So, is there an election going on for mayor right now?
Yes, they're in election season, and they are running for mayor right now. They're running for mayor.
Is she running?
Yes, she's running again. She said she's going to win. She said she's going to win.
Okay, and who was running against her? One of the board members, or
yeah,
something?
His name is Jason House, trustee, and there's some other people running too. But the guy's name is Jason House. He's running against her, but the thing is that it's probably going to be a tight race because number one, it's the DEI stuff too. It's like, hey, I'm the first Black woman, that type of thing. And then the number two you got on top of that is she's essentially buying votes.
Nate, if she gets elected, they deserve her. All my sympathy goes out the window.
Amen to that.
I'm sorry. It's like, I understand they tried to recall her, and I feel bad for them now because I feel like they're victims. They tried to get rid of her. They signed it. They did all the right stuff, and they can't get rid of her. But if they actually vote that individual in, then they earned it. I don't know. I mean, let's say the other dude does win, though, Nate. Mm-hmm. Would he have it within his power to immediately, rescind everything she did and arrest her?
No, I don't think he'd have the ability to arrest her because he'd just be mayor. But he can rescind everything that she's done,
or have the police do it under him.
Yeah, because you have to investigate, and there's still due process that you have to go through. So it is still that process. But You know, it's a tough road. It's a tough road. But now, if I was them in Dalton, I'd be thinking, how do I change my local government so this thing doesn't happen? There's more oversight. The mayor can't just go spend
Like a
$5 million
tripwire.
and do anything that do anything she wants. That type of thing.
Yeah, or maybe even tripwires. To where like if you go too far here, that the account freezes, or ceilings, like you can spend no more than this at a time without the full board. I guess that would work. Like, she leased a whole bunch of vehicles, if I recall, right?
Yeah.
So you could have something like any purchase over X, the board has to vote or approve.
Yes.
The budget or something. I don't know. It just seems crazy. It just seems crazy. All right. Well, what other stories are there that you guys are going to see?
Well, Ron. Well, I wanted to ask Ron. Ron, and obviously you too, Eric, because I've spoken to you about it. What do you guys think about this sheriff that shot the judge in Kentucky?
Okay. The rumor I've heard is that he was doing something with the sheriff's daughter, and
or the sheriff thought he was doing something.
It could be. You see, that's the problem, is that I don't know a lot about that area. I've gotten the impression, because like somebody else released a video talking about her father who was murdered in the area. Like this part of Kentucky makes me think of, you remember the show Justified?
Yes. Yeah.
Harlan County. Well, I looked on the map, and Harlan County is like, 20 feet away.
All these places are right next to each other.
We may be dealing with some potential corruption. And again, I haven't read deeply into it, but from what I understand, the sheriff and the judge were like best friends, and there could have been a criminal conspiracy between the two of them going back. I don't know, allegedly, but for example, let's just say that women and what we modernly call human trafficking could be involved. And if the sheriff knew what this guy knew or something like that, and it somehow saw the phone number in the wrong place, I don't know. It's very weird.
Right. I mean, apparently the only thing I heard, and I've kind of been waiting. I have no intention of ever doing a deep dive in this, but it seems though that everything I'm hearing is that stuff is coming out in dribs and drabs. And the last drab that I heard was that the sheriff saw his daughter's name in the judge's contacts. Now, that sure as hell isn't a reason to kill someone.
No.
The daughter could have called the guy up and said, I want to make a surprise party for my dad. I mean, that you simply can't have a strict liability rule, even in an honor, an honor-based society where you shoot somebody for messing with your daughter, which is also completely.
But what the question would be, though, and again, I'm throwing out speculation because I don't know. What if it said, hook up number 10, and he saw the phone number? You know what I mean? Like the address entry said something of that sort, like, my side piece. And then he saw the phone number. He's like, well, wait, what? And then boom, boom, boom. I don't know.
I don't see.
Let me do this. Let me give a quick background so the audience understands.
Yeah, please do.
Gotta get the whole context.
I'm going to go out the rails.
So this sheriff, who used to be the bailiff for the local judge. So this cop, he used to be the sheriff. He used to be the bailiff for the local judge for about 7 years. He eventually he runs for sheriff and gets elected sheriff. Him and the judge are good friends. The morning of the shooting, they go to lunch. Judge and they're in lunch, and then people at the lunch at the diner overhear the judge say, well, we'll take care of that when we get back to my office. They go back to the office, and then there's a video in the judge's chambers where you can see allegedly, and this was in the preliminary hearing, the judge, the sheriff, tries to call his daughter on his phone. The daughter either picks up or doesn't pick up, one of the two. I think she doesn't pick up. Then he asked the judge for his phone if he can call his daughter from his phone. The judge gives over his phone to the sheriff, and the sheriff starts typing in the daughter's number, and then the daughter's name and stuff pops up in the judge's contacts. Then you see the sheriff get agitated They have like a brief argument, and then the sheriff pulls out a gun, and that's when the judge puts his hands up. The sheriff shoots the judge a couple of times. The judge goes under the table, he shoots him again. Then while the sheriff is walking out of the room, he stops at the door, turns around, and shoots the judge 3 more times.
Yeah, he really wanted that judge dead, obviously.
Then he walks out to the courtroom, puts his gun on the table, and tells the court officers there, hey, treat me fair because they were trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
How do you get that out of just an entry? That's why I was saying I feel like it.
Hold on. So that's what I'm saying. So now at the preliminary hearing, it was confirmed that yes, the daughter's phone number was in the judge's contacts, and all that stuff was accurate, that they had tried to make the phone calls and stuff like that. And then something else that came up is that the defense team for the sheriff said that the sheriff is going to plead essentially to manslaughter. Well, not plead to manslaughter. His defense is going to be manslaughter. He can't defend the thing, but he's defending it based on a manslaughter. He wants to reduce liability. So what he's saying is that this case is extreme emotional, not extreme emotional disturbance. Heat of passion, but it's EED, extreme emotional disturbance. And what he's saying is that something happened in that room that would make a reasonable person like you going home and catching your wife in bed with another man. Something in that room happened that was so extreme that caused this sheriff to kill the judge. And that would mitigate it from first-degree murder to manslaughter. So that's what his legal team, they were on law and crime and thing. So I did do a video one that did the deep dive.
How old is the girl?
The daughter, I think, is right now is 17. Or 16, I think 16 or 17, something like that.
Okay, so that does color it a little bit, because if I called one of your daughters, Nate, you would be like, how the hell would you have my daughter's phone number? What are you doing with that? That would be a little bit odd. But then 16, I don't know. It's like, Girl Scout.
There was something that other people were saying that I thought made sense. Number one, if you have Facebook and the person uses Facebook, as soon as you have your contact Facebook, it adds you to the contact. So like I can be contacted. I'm like, if Ron, one of Ron's kids, if I'm friends with them on Facebook and then Ron types in their number, their contact is only going to come up on my phone. Like it's saved because it's through Facebook. So you do have that issue where that's a possibility.
But you wouldn't have the phone number.
No, you would if you type in the phone number, because Facebook does the contact thing. So even if I didn't put you in the contact,
you mean it was dynamically attaching it to?
Right.
Well, maybe
that's a possibility. And then the second thing is that if you're such good friends with this guy, his wife, you're going to lunch, you're doing all this.
Oh, here we go. The daughter was interning for law school at the courthouse, so it's very possible.
Yeah, it's possible that he could have had it.
Had the phone number. That would be a legitimate. If you have any problems or anything else, please call me. If you can't make it to the appointment, please call me. And I don't know about you. I have my phone set up that unless you're in my contact list, it doesn't ring to me. It just goes right to voicemail and goes away. So it would be quite logical for him to add her name and contact info so she could call him, so he could respond in emergency or whatever that might happen.
Ron, what do you think about their EED defense, their extreme emotional disturbance defense for this guy?
What do I think about it? It's frankly, it's not a topic that I have any particular expertise in, because I practice civil litigation, and everyone that I work with would be amenable to that defense, frankly. But I would say that, I mean, it sounds like this is like a down the middle law school exam kind of situation. I mean, this is a jury question. If there was ever a jury question, was he was he out of his mind? I mean, what you have described sounds like an extremely well deliberated and bloodless process.
But it was in the heat of the moment. It doesn't sound like he walked in there and just shot him, but it was just like he reacted to something, right, Nate? You said that
whatever
he
you
saw something and then they had an exchange. So it wasn't premeditated in the sense of like planning ahead.
Well, it might not have been, or it might have been. I mean, unless here's a guy whose job is to walk around with a gun all the time.
True.
Presumably, therefore, he doesn't shoot people every time he's annoyed.
I hope not.
And in other words, what I think it would be reasonable to infer from these facts, in other words, to guess. I'm talking about this is a guess. To guess that he had a beef. And he went in and he asked a question, or he made a statement that confirmed his intention to act extremely. I don't think that this is a situation where there was nothing going on. There was nothing between them. He innocently went in there, and then upon either seeing something on a phone or a brief exchange of words, decided to end his career, potentially end his life, certainly end his life as a free man, commit a murder on a surveillance camera, and then handed his weapon and surrender. I mean, that just doesn't come out of nowhere.
No, I agree. But I will give you one more example. Remember I said, what if the number is identified as, side piece or something?
Right.
Another one would be, what if there was a nude picture of the girl assigned to the phone number?
That my guess would be
that could trigger somebody to that, potentially a father. I don't know.
I mean, that strikes me though as more far out than the idea that he knew something was cooking. He went in there and said, "Am I nuts, or did I just see a picture yesterday or 5 minutes ago? I don't know." But I don't think it came out of nowhere, and I think that is going to end up, if it's provable, and who knows what the texts say? Who knows what the video says? If it were provable that he was already agitated, that he had already that these facts that somehow justified in his fevered mind this wrongdoing, then that goes to his mens rea, to his intention.
Yeah, I really just don't know. I feel like they've done a good job of having to only be rumors coming out. It seems like normally there's more that is reported, but here it's like it just seems to be really clammed up, and the most we have is that he recognized a phone number.
Yeah. But again, I think we need more facts before we can make any kind of real determination here. But I would say my gut is leaning to something. This is a sheriff. This is a judge. I don't believe he's just going to shoot the guy down like this without some reason. And that reason is going to be because the defense is usually the defense doesn't have to prove anything. But if you're going to a mitigating factor, like, hey, we want manslaughter instead of murder, then you're going to have to show why this was a reasonable situation where the person was, like coming in, like at that moment, killing the person is something a reasonable person could have done. That's like, again, you walking in on your wife.
Well, and also it was I mean, I've seen the video. It was a horrible execution. I mean, it was as cold as it comes, and it was, complete with coup de grace. Well, everything. It was like he wanted him. No question, no turning back. It was gunning him down. It was brutal.
One thing I do want to mention because some people are like, it's not premeditated murder. It's not premeditated murder. Premeditation doesn't have to. You don't have to plan it the day before or an hour before. It can actually happen in the moment. And in this case, the prosecutors are going to say that moment is when he walked to the door and maybe turned around and shot the guy 3 more times. Right? Premeditation. You can at that point. I'm going to kill this person. Let me premeditation. The time frame. I think a lot of people think it has to be like this well-crafted plan. No, it can't happen in the moment. So right now, it's whether that judge is going to get the death penalty because you're talking about Kentucky, or if he's going to maybe get 20 years for.
Well, the judge already got the death penalty, technically. You mean the sheriff?
I mean the sheriff. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, the judge has already been executed by the sheriff. So. But we'll see.
But that's a hard question, Nate. I mean, so the premeditation would be on the coup de grace part, because technically you could say that, in a conflict, that person decides to kill them, that's premeditated because they decide, then they did.
Yeah,
You know,
generally
with the window.
Generally, you'd know this would be like a second-degree murder charge. But if prosecutors can prove that premeditation happened in that moment, then yeah, and generally coup de grace could elevate you to that particular thing, because if you shoot somebody, wound them, and they're sitting there, help, and you hold the gun, you in that pause, and you think, and then you shoot them dead, that could lead to premeditation.
That's interesting. I am curious, it's like, what is the actual clock? Now it's like, okay, if you act within X amount of time, it's not premeditated versus it is premeditated.
Yeah, but there is no clock. It's all about,
like, I guess here's an example. I'm going to throw out a scenario that probably has happened before somewhere, sometime. A road rage incident. Okay. So somebody, gets in road rage, they have an altercation, right? And then a person walks away and says, you know what? Goes to the car, pulls out a gun and shoots the other. Would that fall under the premeditation as you're describing here?
It could. It could technically, yes, it could fall into premeditation. If we're arguing, and I'm saying, I'm going to get my gun and go kill you, and then you go get the gun and kill, they can say, yeah, that's premeditated. You because don't forget the premeditation. You have it's that thinking about it and saying, okay, I'm going to do this and this. That's kind of where you get to that premeditation. So you could have it again. It could happen in an instant. It could happen in that moment, but it's harder to prove when the time frame is so short. Second degree murder is easy to prove, but it's a lot tougher to prove in that moment. And I think here they're going for that because obviously it's a judge, so that is going to get you the first degree. But they're trying to prove it in that moment that there was this circumspection, there was this understanding that, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the plan I have, and I'm going to execute that plan. And in your example, the execution of the plan is, let me go get the gun and kill this person, and then going to execute that plan.
Okay, so let me change my scenario up one time, because I really do want to try to get the nuance of it. The guy has the gun on him, doesn't have it out, doesn't go to get it, but they have the altercation, and then the person says, you know what? Pulls it out and shoots. Is that falling? Because the first one, it's like, okay, that technically they separated and he walked over to get it, then he turned around, it seemed like it was over. But then I'm changing slightly to see, now would that fall under premeditation?
See, but and even in that particular case, it all depends on what the government can prove. If the government can prove you thought about it, then the plan is, I'm going to kill this person. Then you get your premeditation. But sometimes you can't, because you could say, hey, I was acting in the moment. There was no thought to it. I just, boom, 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 boom. So that's kind of where you get that distinction from, if you know what I mean. The distinction is the plan, or the execution of the plan can happen in the instant, but you have to prove the person thought about the plan before executing the plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just curious about these things.
It's fascinating because there are two interesting legal, one in the civil one. I think I want to definitely throw to Ron real quick, and then another one in the criminal arena, which I definitely want to get Ron and Eric's opinion about. So the one in the civil arena is, so yesterday, remember the Hurricane Milton went through Florida?
Yeah,
and this YouTuber is driving his $200,000 McLaren.
Jack Doherty.
Yeah, he's in the middle. He's like, I'm in the hurricane. Matter of fact, I'll play the video for you. But he's in the hurricane, and this is what happened. It's a wild story, but it's fascinating because they're asking that the state arrest him for reckless driving and even I forgot what it was, like another charge.
I think they probably can. Don't they have anti-texting laws, driving distracted laws? I mean, he literally videoed himself doing all this. I would think there's cause for arrest.
Yeah, here it is right here. I'm gonna play it.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, but
so this is during the recent hurricane.
On the goddamn steering wheel for it not to work ever. Isn't that crazy? And the airbag I don't even think works. I'm cooked if I die. Dangerous when you're watching your phone. I gotta read chat. No, I'm kidding.
It's all a joke.
Hurricane, I'm prioritizing my chat. You know I love you. show us the road at least. They try to pick up the road every now and then. Yeah.
Texting.
This ain't trouble, bro. I'm not talking to you, bro.
Yeah, he's going to accelerate, speed up.
Oh! Oh! No! 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 Oh, fuck. No, watch out, watch out. Oh. Oh, fuck, open the door, open your door.
And this twat
Walk in
is
here.
filming himself the whole time. I'm just,
Where's your phone?
it's so ridiculous.
Racist, race ipsa loquitur.
So Rod. Now the cameraman was hurt. The cameraman who was sitting in the passenger seat, he was hurt. He had a cut over the eye. He went to the hospital, and they totally destroyed the car. So now they're saying, so there's a criminal aspect of it. Is saying, should he be arrested because he's obviously texting while driving? This is reckless driving, and someone got hurt on a highway in the middle of a hurricane. So that's one issue. And then the second issue is his civil liability. And should his cameraman sue? And how much should the cameraman sue for? Because, it was he part of the problem because the cameraman is knowing what's going to happen. He's filming, or is he an employee? Is it only workers' compensation? That type of thing.
Great questions.
I don't see any liability for the cameraman. You cannot waive. You're right. You cannot waive criminal liability. You can waive civil liability. So it is, I suppose. I even think as a matter of public policy, I would not be surprised. Hi, Joe. I would not be surprised if even if there were a waiver in place, which would surprise me very much. It would have to be written and very explicit. But I would be surprised if a judge would enforce a waiver that says, even if I do something unlawful or reckless, and this is, if it's not unlawful, and it probably is, it's certainly reckless, that any injury that occurs to me as a result of, this is not a matter of let's go bungee jumping or let's do something that the activity has inherent riskiness to it. I'm going to get in the car with you, and I know that you're, generally speaking, like they weren't doing a stunt. It wasn't like Mr. Beast, right?
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be a stunt to drive on a wet highway.
This is a great point too, Ron. And you can probably address this. What about his insurance? Can they refuse to pay the claim?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
This is as close to intentionally, to an intentional act as you could possibly get, short of I'm going to hit that telephone pole. I mean, it doesn't get. It's just like I said before. Rick ipsa loquitur. It's just so freaking. Thing speaks for itself.
What does ipsa loquitur mean?
That's what she said. Oh, it literally is.
Mine sings actually. That's why I call it Little Elvis.
Hold on.
Rest means thing. Loquitur means ipsa is, and loquitur means talking. Meaning the thing is talking, and so that's a Latin phrase they teach us. You learn that as a first year. That res ipsa loquitur. In certain circumstances.
You walk under. They're lifting a piano by a cable, and everyone turns around, and the next thing you know, the piano is on the sidewalk, and somebody's underneath it, smashed. No one saw the piano fall. But there's a smashed piano on top of a puppy, okay? That puppy didn't, the thing speaks for itself. I mean, there are some, which is kind of interesting, Joe, because, one of the discussions that we often have in the realm of Talmudic liability law is that there is almost never liability, strictly speaking, under the strict sort of legal, and there are kind of equitable approaches to this, but eyewitness evidence is the only kind of evidence. There is no what's the word again? Direct evidence and
Circumstantial.
Circumstantial evidence, which is 80-90% of the evidence that we rely on.
Circumstantial. Yeah.
In American law is
under the common law and
Well, the circumstantial evidence is isn't that misperceived by a lot of people as being bad evidence? Because like DNA is circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, circumstantial evidence is something that the public tends to be very dismissive of when they hear something as circumstantial evidence. And to be fair, a lot of things in a very broad array of what's considered of what we call circumstantial evidence, and some of it is far more indicative than others. So, fingerprints and DNA are technically circumstantial evidence. The circumstance. What do we mean when we say circumstantial evidence? Is that we don't have eyewitness
Direct
testimony.
evidence.
Yeah, we don't have video. There's no way for us to actually go back and see what happened here, or have someone tell us what they saw, what happened here.
And Stan points out in the chat that he says eyewitness is lousy. In fact, we have science has really the behavioral science, psychology. People misremember stuff badly. And people, no question, people have fried for it. No question.
And their mind, and also it's very easy for their minds to genuinely shift. Meaning, like if a seed is planted, that they saw that the person was wearing a brown shirt, and the person could have been wearing a green shirt, and they'll just be like, if the seed is planted, if it's especially an unexpected event, like all of a sudden out of the blue something happens really fast and then it's in and out, and like a calamity happens during a 3-second span, someone comes running by and the bus hits someone. Right, and it's like that people literally will misremember the color of the bus because you're not expecting it, and you're focusing on the impact and result rather than the cause.
But having said that, I take responsibility for having hydroplaned this discussion into the side of the road. But in fact, it doesn't get much clearer. Short of actually saying I intend to smash the car, there's a point at which the law says your recklessness is deemed to be essentially, is deemed by the law to be the same as acting purposelessly. Yeah. You run outside with a sword to start swinging it around. I didn't intend to chop anyone's head off.
Question though, but back to the evidence, because I'm just curious. Wouldn't the video be actually circumstantial evidence, but acting like direct evidence? Like technically, anyone watching the video is a witness, sort of. But
Eric, you're right. Technically, I think I'm sure law review articles have been written about this, because let's not even come onto the world of deepfakes and manipulation of video evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back 10 years, 20 years and say, if I really, and the answer is it is circumstantial, because hell, we have the Zapruder film.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that's, it's not, is that direct evidence of something? I suppose it is.
Isn't that why they have to have cops come in and testify with their body camera to say that, yes, I was there, that's my body camera, authentication, all that?
Authentication is a related issue, right?
But, all right, so because I had to pull it up, I'm like, hold on, let me make sure I'm right about this. All right, so direct evidence is evidence that directly proves the fact. I think this video would be direct evidence. It directly proves that fact. He was driving in terms of
that he was driving, and that he said that. And in other words, exactly what you're seeing, not the inference that you take from it.
That's what circumstantial evidence is. Circumstantial evidence is you have to make it, the evidence itself, you have to make an inference to something else. So with DNA, I have to make an inference that because your DNA was there, you killed the person, something like that. So that's the circumstantial evidence.
Wow, but I still feel like that bridges the gap, though, because you have, again, Ron, you just mentioned manipulation of the camera, things like this. So you have to prove that it's actually reliable. And ironically, you just said it directly proves, but an eyewitness we just discussed doesn't prove shit a lot of times. Often they're very poor. It's poor evidence, especially as an example, because I do a lot of behavior stuff and things like that. If you're being robbed by somebody at gunpoint, you will probably do a better job describing the gun than the person, because the threat is the gun, not necessarily that person. So I don't know. Hey, Sean.
Hi, Eric. Hey, guys.
Yeah, but I think when we talk about direct evidence, if you have to make an inference to prove that fact, then it's not direct, it's circumstantial.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of these cases, I think we have to make the distinction of the quality of the evidence, because you can have poor direct evidence and poor circumstantial evidence is strong, but in a sense of just what it is, if you have to make an inference based on the evidence, then that's your circumstance. That's when you consider it.
Well, Sean, you're a criminal lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's well. Okay. So, am I right or wrong on that? It seems like to me a video would technically be circumstantial evidence, because I thought it was only eyewitness that was direct, but I don't know.
No. I mean, Nate was right with that. Yeah, circumstantial it's not obvious. Like, you're kind of drawing a conclusion there. Like the snow, you wake up and snow fell. Well, did it snow, or did somebody in a helicopter run a snow machine? I mean, it's the idea. You didn't see it happen, but obviously you knew it snowed. That's really the biggest issue there. What's, circumstantial versus direct. It suggests that it happens. It's suggesting, it's allowing you to draw the inference. Mm-hmm. It doesn't directly prove it. This is short of, Jack Dorsey's literally making statements on camera as he's doing it.
Hold on, it's Doherty, not Dorsey.
Doherty, yes. Sorry.
Leave the Twitter guy alone.
Yeah, I'm going to crash this car. He literally says, I'm going to crash
he's like, I can do this. This is dangerous.
No, it's an interesting Freudian slip, though, because considering how often Jack Dorsey lied under oath.
Yes. But yes, it's his admissions, it's his direct statements. You're watching this happen, so it's not exactly a physical piece of evidence, because, like, for example, a murder weapon would be direct evidence of something. Like, this was the gun. Yeah. We tested it. This is exactly it. This is him on camera holding it. It's direct evidence. It shows this actually occurring. And then it comes down to, would you believe your lying eyes type of situation. And then I know when I was coming in, you guys were mentioning, well, how do we know the video isn't altered or messed with? Well, then Jack's going to have to show, look, here's the original. It was actually sunny outside. Or I've got both hands on the steering wheel and I'm driving along like a nice boy. He would have to show that, because at this point, it's up there. It's on his channel. It's going to be on him to show that's been altered.
Yeah. He's live streaming it live. Like,
and the other thing is too, and I don't know if you guys saw it, his cameraman, like a day or two later for his, like, on Jack's birthday, his cameraman got a brand new jet ski.
Because he knows the cameraman can fleece them.
But it's also because the kid's like 19 years old, like Jack. So he's like, oh, wow, this is cool. Hey, sign here, buddy. Oh, yeah, sure, whatever.
Not knowing that he's got a $1 million claim.
I'm sure that's what he did. And I'm sure that's what happened there. So, but Jack Doherty's in a lot of trouble. But honestly, for the type of, he's already got other liability. I don't know if you guys cover this with his bodyguards beating people.
Oh yeah. He likes to pick fights with people and then have his bodyguards beat him up. And and
his bodyguards, apparently one of them's a complete psychopath who's got a bunch of criminal charges against him. So,
since now we have a group full of lawyers here, there's an interesting thing that's happening as a consequence of Johnny Depp and Me Too. So it's called blank by deception.
Oh, yeah.
And blank by deception is where, so there are cases now that are going through the courts where women are saying, because a man deceived them into intercourse, that should be considered non-consensual blank, and they should and these men should be charged with blank.
So
what's the deception grounds?
So all right, so here's a famous case. I pulled one case up, so I'm going to play this.
The guy tricked.
We're resurrecting the old crime of seduction.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I'm a movie executive, and it turns out I'm not a movie.
By this
executive.
logic, every woman who wears makeup to a bar is deceiving. Men.
Well,
Let me play these. I'm gonna play 2 clips. Both
Not
of
that
them,
Joe's ever been in a bar.
both are a minute each. So this is New Jersey, who is trying to institute this. New Jersey, the great where Ron is at.
Let's hope the word slides through.
Defining rape. A New Jersey lawmaker has a plan that would make it a crime to lie in order to sleep with someone. CBS 2's Jessica Schneider with the assemblyman who calls it rape by fraud.
New Jersey Assemblyman Troy Singleton has heard the stories from around the state. Women and even men lured into relationships with people who aren't who they say they are.
You probably would not consent to someone who purported to be a million different things other than they are.
That's why Singleton has just introduced a bill that would make lying to get someone to have sex equal to rape.
We think that it is important for folks to be protected.
But under the bill, it would have to be more than just a little white lie to land you in jail. The lies would have to be continuous and rise to a high level of deceit.
So
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Oh, well, there is that.
I mean, that's what I'm thinking right now, and it's just
Oh,
lying.
So that's the first clip. But now let me get to the second clip, because the second clip, now they're basing it off of this case from California. And it's a famous case. It's Borough v. Superior Court. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this case. It's a famous law school case. I call it a chestnut case because in that case, the California court said rape by deception is not something that is legitimate. So I'm going to play this for you. It's a Quimby.
To obtain sex under false pretenses. Do imposter schemes constitute rape? The California Court of Appeal addressed this issue in the 1985 case of Borough versus Superior Court.
Listen to the facts.
In 1984, Daniel Borough called a victim, known as Miss R, to convince her to have sex with him. Borough posed as a doctor telephoning with Miss R's blood test results. Borough indicated that Miss R had contracted a potentially fatal disease from using public toilets. Borough told Miss R that there were 2 treatment options. First,
By the way, if you could just pause it, I think it's
surgery
totally racist.
requiring a 6-week.
Go ahead.
Is this actually
I think it's totally racist that they made the moronic victim black.
No.
I think that's the most racist thing in the world.
This is an actual case. These are true facts. This is what happened.
Well,
this is not. You can
But
look
I'm saying
this
is,
up.
Here's the
it
thing,
wasn't
though.
2 cartoon characters. I mean, was she really white or was she
No.
black?
This obviously this is just they're just doing this for
Yeah.
the thing. But listen,
yeah, but it's still not good.
listen to the facts first. Let's listen to the facts and let's discuss, because
All
the
right.
facts are insane.
Hospital stay. SEC could choose an expensive, painful Miss R that there were 2 treatment options. First, she could choose an expensive, painful surgery requiring a 6-week hospital stay. Second, for less money, she could have sex with an anonymous man who'd been injected with a serum that would cure the disease. Miss R agreed to the second option. Miss R made arrangements with Borough to meet with the anonymous man in a hotel room. Unbeknownst to Miss R, Borough was the anonymous man. Borough and Miss R had intercourse. Miss R felt obligated to have sex because she believed her life depended on it. California charged Borough with multiple offenses in the San Mateo County Superior Court. Borough filed a motion to dismiss the second count of the rape of a person who is unconscious of the nature of the act. The court rejected the motion. Borough filed a writ of prohibition with the California Court of Appeal to prevent prosecution of that count.
And he won. Borough actually won. But
Well,
now just a little,
okay, that one is that's almost like practical joke level ludicrousness. But
Well,
are we going to get into the
just- but-
twins now?
but just a couple of different of
All right.
things I want to add.
She
to the
can't get. She isn't capable of ever giving consent.
Yeah.
That's problem number one.
I got to give you a couple more facts to help this along. Number one, the reason why he was actually at the doctor's office with her when they were at the same doctor's office, and when she left, he actually supposedly looked at he saw it, like, you know how they have their file open. That's how he got her number. I think he saw it from the file and pretended to be the doctor. That's how he knew about the test results. And the second thing is that he actually mentioned stuff like HIPAA. Like, he was like, well, I can't tell you who the person that you're going to have sex with because HIPAA violations, right? I can't tell you he had the surgery or whatever. So it all has to be anonymous. You can't, he can't know who you are. You can't know who he is. It just has to all be this, and you can tell no.
Also,
so that's how this is.
Also, remember this is 1985, so like we didn't understand AIDS yet and HIV.
Yeah,
so like people are
85.
It was pretty much in the headlines, dude. I was.
Well, I mean, it was in the headlines, but did people? I mean, that was still.
Hey, it ruined
that was when
my
everyone was
teenage
terrified
life,
about
buddy.
it.
Yeah, in 85,
ruined my teenage life.
In 85, people thought that you could get it.
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea she got it from a toilet seat, like that part actually makes a lot of sense. Like people, like there were a million different theories on how you.
Well, okay, so hold on. But let's think about. Let's take that and play it out a little.
Yes.
Her thinking that she could get it from a toilet seat, yeah, a lot of people are paranoid.
Yes.
But the idea that intercourse, that which everybody did know at the time, seemed to be tied to it, would be the solution.
But your doctor's calling you and saying, "We have the cure," right?
Yes, I mean that part. That's the worst part about it. But it's like Full Metal Jacket when Sergeant Hartman walks up to Gomer Pyle and says, "If it wasn't for idiots like you, there'd be no thievery in this world." And yeah, if this woman wasn't that stupid, this guy would never.
So now, but now the legal issue is because again the states can make this illegal. So and California actually changed the law and said that if you could convince a person, it was a woman, but now it's a person, that if they believe they're having intercourse with their spouse, then that would be, you can use that. But if it's somebody else, so there's been a whole bunch of cases about that where someone pretended to be someone's spouse and had sex, and then they'll say that's the factor. But the difference is it's fraud and inducement. And I actually wrote it down. Fraud and inducement is when a person is consenting to the act itself, but is misled by it. So you're inducing them by misleading them. And in this case, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, something like that, or I'm not married, right? Your marital status versus fraud in fact, where let's say, for instance, removing the condom during sex would be a fraud in fact because the person's consenting to sexual activity, but not in the sexual activity of the
What about if you have an STD and you say, "No, I'm great"?
That wouldn't be blank. That would be something else. It wouldn't be considered blank.
What would it be then? But there is something.
I think there are a couple of like people have been prosecuted in New York for that particular thing. I'm knowingly having blah 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 and giving it to someone else. So that would be a different crime. But this particular crime is about the consent to the act. So that's the difference here. So now you have states like New Jersey and some other states wanting to make it a crime to deceive someone, marital status, for instance, or societal status, right? I'm a lawyer who's making millions of dollars. Okay, well, if that happens to be false, you could be charged with
blank. And what's the scope of it being false? Like, how much do you have to lie by? Like, if I make $1 million, but I only make 500,000, am I deceiving that person? Like, is that the crime?
I think it's got to be material, and I think it's got to be reasonable too. Right?
Well, no, I know, but I'm just saying in New Jersey, it sounds like, well, if you lie about your job or you lie about, like, oh, my Ferrari's in the shop tonight.
Right, exactly, right. Hey, maybe I can get you a Rolex like this. Just what?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a crazy ass law because then, okay, so what if you lease a Ferrari?
Yeah,
and
well, that's what people do in Miami.
A lot of people do. I mean, a lot of YouTubers and people with the whole clout are leasing vehicles and pretending, and
hey, leasing clout, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna guess that Doherty didn't rent the car, but that would have been even worse, right?
Yeah, he owns that car. Yeah, that would have been even worse.
Well,
but
owning the car is the full move there. Lease that stuff.
Who's the puppy, Sean?
It's Clyde.
Clyde, hey Clyde.
I think if this law is going to affect, it would be a horrible disaster because essentially everybody who's at everybody who's at a bar, and if you hook up with somebody, you would essentially be, you're
the most beautiful woman here tonight.
Nate, if you lie via subpoena, could I be in trouble? Yeah. So I know these are crazy cases, but this is essentially what's going on in the world.
Well, you mentioned that the law, and what I think is so funny is remember how they rewrote the law, or they made that weird exception in New York to say that, hey, everybody come forward with an SA claim within this period of time.
Yes.
And it was targeted to get Trump by any standards. But one of the guys who supported it, council member or somebody, well, guess what? They came forward against him. That's the irony too, Nate, because how many people like this dumbass and this guy in Jersey wants that law? Would it not be so perfect with the times that, you know, in 2 years he would get nailed by said law himself?
I could see it. That guy does not look like Rico Suave to me. He's not a ladies' man.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I could definitely see it. And the Trump one is hilarious because the guy who actually he was arguing for the law, he was out there. Yes, we need to pass. We need to pass. We need to get him. And then right after that, he gets hit with the same law. And now, but now it's in court saying it's unconstitutional. It's not right. It's not right to do this to people. It's hilarious. But you know. Okay, so what about this twins case? Because that isn't that going forward, or did that get tossed? What? Yeah. All right. So this also goes into the twins case. So there were twins in Connecticut. And one of the twins, which is wild too. So one twin had sex with his twin brother's girlfriend, who happens to be exceptionally hot, by the way. And so he calls his the twins live together. His brother goes to work or something, and so the other brother calls his twin brother's girlfriend over to the house. She comes over and he's like, "Hey, you know, I'm Johnny." Say I'm Johnny, but obviously he's pretending to be his brother, wearing his brother's clothes and all that stuff. And he says, "Hey, let's just jump into the hot tub. My brother's not here. Let's have some fun." She comes over, they jump into the hot tub, and things go where they go. And he's like, "Yeah, let's go and do it." So they go and have sex. It goes great. And he gets up to go to the bathroom. She notices he doesn't have a tattoo on his rear end, because that's how the twins. One twin has a tattoo on his butt. The other doesn't. So she asked him. She said, "What happened to your tattoo?" And he's like, I got it removed or whatever. So eventually, he's like, "All right, so take me home." They jump in the brother's car, and he's trying to drive her home, but he doesn't know where she lives because he's never been there before.
Always a bad sign.
Yeah. So while they're in the car, the girl says, she's like, "Oh, so you're not Johnny, you're Jay." And he's like, "How'd you know?" And he was like, "Because you don't know where I'm at. You don't have the tattoo, blah, 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 blah." She was like, "Why'd you do this?" Right. So the cops, he's a police officer. He's a police officer. So they charge him. So they charge him with blank, and they charge him with impersonation to get a benefit. But the blank
was a benefit, all right.
But the blank charge was dismissed because she consented to the blank.
Somebody in my locals just brought up the point saying sounds anti-trans to me. What about that? Didn't we just have somebody who executed a trans person because they were fooled by said person? You're muted, Ron.
Murdered. The term is murdered. Only the state can perform executions. You can do an execution style murder, but an execution is done under the authority.
That's a good point. What's the difference between a murder and assassination, by the way?
Not all assassinations are murder, but not all murders are assassinations.
Okay, I'm just curious. I mean, because I understand if like a president is assassinated, but
so a person who's targeted for being killed because of who he is or the position that he has, that's assassination. But merely killing somebody and I don't
think all assassinations are murder.
You don't think what?
I don't think all assassinations are murder.
Oh, that's true, because a state-sponsored assassination is technically an act of war, right? No. I mean, that's a good point, Joe. If the leader of Hamas is taken out,
I see where Joe's coming from, but in other words, I can assassinate. If I can assassinate Hitler, I haven't committed murder. No, I think it's still murder under the law of where I've killed Hitler. You might pardon me. You might give me an award. You might give me the Nobel Prize. But under the law, I hate to say the state of Nazi Germany, it's still a murder. I mean,
That's like saying by that argument every Yahtzee who was killed in Germany, that was murder. I'm saying any private in the army who was killed.
No.
Battle,
We're talking about
murder. Because in Germany, you're not allowed to kill them.
Combat, an entirely different category.
Yeah, combat.
Well, okay, hold on. This is actually interesting to me. Trump took out that Iranian general. Let's use that as an example.
Yeah.
That was an assassination, right? Is it murder? Or is that if Iran
had the power to arrest Bibi Netanyahu, that they would charge him with murder? Of course they would.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But we get into some nuance here, don't we? I mean, because as a country, we took out the Shah of Iran in '53. We've taken.
But that's why assassinations.
Assassinations. But
even during war, targeted assassinations are there are questions about assassination.
Okay, so if a terrorist is visiting America, okay, and he gets killed here on our soil, so then that's an assassination. It's not a murder, even by your yardstick.
That would be if he's here and that would be.
You're saying
he's over there and he's taken out.
Well, Joe, how did he get killed? Was he mugged on the subway?
No, I'm saying if he's assassinated. In other words, that that someone basically he sneaks into the country.
You don't think that he could be tried for murder because he's an assassin?
Well, what about bin Laden? Was he assassinated?
He was captured in an attempt to arrest him overseas. By the way, there
was no arresting. There was no arresting.
No. I actually think that they didn't. I could be mistaken.
This is actually a fun conversation.
I don't think the president of the United States, strictly speaking, had a right to take out bin Laden.
He's got immunity.
Those were military men gunning down a man of color in his home.
But I would have no problem whatsoever with being the guy to give the order to do that.
It's actually a little more of a complex topic, though, isn't it? I mean, seriously.
Because you can get even more granular. Like, for instance, if the president has sovereign immunity worldwide, the president of the United States. So technically, he can't commit murder. He can't.
Well, that's not true because what are crimes? What are crimes against humanity?
While he's president. He's president.
Only if it involves his duties as president. So
that's what I'm saying.
So killing bin Laden would be part of his duties as president.
Exactly. So
only he can really decide what that is.
Ron, I think you're desperately trying to. You're desperately trying to butter this cow.
About anything I'm doing here.
And I'm sorry. I respectfully disagree because I like you can anytime someone kills someone in self-defense, he might be charged. That doesn't mean it's illegal. It doesn't mean it's murder. So just because he could be charged with murder on an assassination, if it ends up being legal under the law.
Okay. Murder, unlawful killing of a person, right?
Right.
Show me the law that says if it's an assassination, it's not murder. Where's show me the law?
I'm just saying that. I'm giving you an example right here. Okay, give me an example right here. If the president says, basically assesses that this individual is a terrorist, has genuine evidence that it's a terrorist, right, and that this person is a threat to Americans, etc., or whatever, and this guy is in the country here, and he decides that he's going to have this person assassinated, he would have a lawful defense. It would never, at no point in time, would any of his actions be considered illegal, and therefore it would be killing. That's an assassination, and that's not murder.
I don't think you're right. I don't think the president has the right to execute people by designating them terrorists.
If they're not an American citizen,
hold on. Well,
why would it be different here than Soleimani in Iran?
Let me give just a little nuance here. In Joe's, what Joe just said, it would only not be murder or be charged with murder if it's the president doing the killing himself. If the president had somebody else kill the person,
okay,
that person would be easily able to charge you with murder.
We're
It's
trying
only
to have a
the
theoretical conversation here as to whether such a thing as assassination is not murder.
But this is a great conversation.
We're going to the granular level because the president's the only one that has the immunity. So, if
All right, what about Idi Amin or like some of these dictators or Saddam Hussein?
But I want to be very clear. If the president ordered someone else to do it, even if some person in the military, that order would be illegal. And if that person did it, that person could be charged with murder. But the president himself, if the president killed that person, and I'll tell you a president who almost did it, almost killed, threatened to kill his vice president that way. Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson. And he actually killed somebody. So yeah. So
wasn't that a duel?
It was a duel, but
that's different. I think isn't a duel different than an assassination because it's an agreement.
What I'm talking about is just
I would think
the principle of sovereign immunity only extends to one person.
Okay, how about Saddam Hussein? Was he not president of Iraq?
He was hanged by Iraqis.
Nate, I was going to argue though. I don't think so. I think you can argue that immunity extends because think about like Korematsu. Nobody went to jail for making concentration camps. Mm-hmm. Nobody went to jail for.
But Korematsu wasn't found to be illegal.
Well, but like jailing people like that. But like all the things that have happened. Yeah, I know, but they said the president had immunity to do it, so everybody else down the chain is good.
No. They didn't say that. They said under strict scrutiny, that was allowable because of the national security.
Yes, so everybody acting under the orders had that protection.
Yes. So it's different than if they said that was illegal. Then everybody who was doing that would have followed them.
Yes. Well, we have the Nuremberg trials to talk about the orders. I mean, right? I mean, how many? Because didn't they all say, "Hey, I was following orders"? Ultimately, and then he said, "Yeah, hey, I'm following orders and putting the noose around your neck."
They got killed. They were tried for.
Those guys were different.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
I agree.
By the way, Coach, circling back around, how did we get into this? Going into the deception of it all spawned because I said executed, but murdered, whatever. The individual was having thought he was having intercourse with a female, but it turns out that the person was trans. The person killed the trans individual and is pleading what, Nate? Because I think you covered this.
Yeah. So the person that's on the street, this person, trans person, walks up to them and says, "Hey, I'll give you a blank, 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 for $15 or whatever." They said, "Sure, let's do it." They start doing it, and the guy's like, "Hey, those hands." They're finish,
so big.
and then he looks at the person and says, "This is the dude." Pulls out a gun and shoots the guy in the head. Right. Cops then find the person, and the person on a jailhouse phone call tells his father, "Hey, I had to do it because I didn't know it was a guy." So when they went to court, and the first thing the guy said, it was extreme emotional disturbance because he thought he was having sex with a woman. It happened to be blank, and that he acted out of the heat of passion. Huh? Right. Yeah, he thought it was a man, and he acted out of the heat of passion. But then his lawyer said, "Well, we don't think the jury would buy this, so we're going to go with a self-defense argument because the person who he shot the trans person happened to be wanted for robbery." So they went with this robbery scheme, like the person was trying to rob them, even though, he had his penis in his mouth and all that stuff. And yada, yada, yada. The guy who shot the trans person got 30 years in prison. So now most people are saying that they should have gone with the extreme emotional disturbance argument because that would make sense because a reasonable person, heterosexual male in that situation would have overreacted and you probably could have got a jury to buy that.
Which state was this in?
It's Minnesota.
Haven't this
Minneapolis or outside Minneapolis?
I think it was Minneapolis.
This has been tried in other states, though. The argument of the extreme emotional, like the surprise and
the question is, did the guy finish before he did?
I think he did. That's why he shot him, right? He's like, "Oh my god!"
I'm just wondering.
We're looking for forensic evidence here.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering because would that? Well, I could see that being the trigger if that.
Oh gosh, really? That's what you call it, the trigger? Okay.
Hey, Joe,
the trigger warning.
This person makes a good point about universal. There's no universal laws or universal jurisdiction. So if you're talking about murder, it is different. It's different from state to state too. What constitutes murder and everything. Generally, there's a. But yeah, this person's definitely right.
But imagine if there was a instead of killing him, right? So he was suing, saying that that this was fraud, in fact, right? Imagine this guy who shot the trans woman ended up, suing her or suing the trans woman
or suing their estate.
No, I'm saying if they weren't dead, right? And they basically sued them for this under the New Jersey's new law. So then we would have an actual legal definition: is a trans woman a woman? That would basically become a thing. Like, is this actually? We would, right? I mean,
theoretically.
We could actually get a determination: is a trans woman a woman? Because
no, it would be entirely dependent on his perception and his emotional. I saw that he had Braunschweiger, so I therefore decided.
Oh, you're saying
that he's a man, and I got outraged.
I thought he was double X. It doesn't matter what you define as a woman. I thought he was double X.
Here's the story. So because I don't want people in the chat to be confused. This is a quick minute video.
The time at the Aliveness Project.
Trans-centered spaces make me feel recognized.
Is where transgender women can go to feel safe.
That we're like rebuilding a sisterhood.
When there is so much uncertainty when they step outside.
Rebuilding a sisterhood.
Tea time. And
she was just like, the traveling pants.
Full out light.
Savannah Ryan Williams would go to this support group.
I'm here because
Bible admitted to shooting. Court documents say 25-year-old Damarian Kalen Bible admitted to shooting Williams in the head. He told police she approached him for a sexual encounter, but he began to feel, quote, suspicious after the act and shot and killed her. Bible confessed after police found surveillance video of him at the scene near the Lake Street Light Rail Station.
So that's what this is today.
So that's essentially what happened.
See, and they're gonna say he was killed by a Bible.
You're cold, bro. But is this? But now, if you're the attorney, I think I would have gone for the extreme emotional disturbance, even though it hasn't worked. I would have gone for that. I would have gone for the self-defense. It just seems makes more sense.
Well, would you go for that just simply in the sense that maybe you get one person on the jury to nullify it, or maybe somebody on there would be enough to hang a jury?
Well, I'm not even looking to hang the jury. I'm looking to get manslaughter. Because don't forget, the EED claim doesn't absolve you of the crime. It just we're talking about 20 years versus life in prison. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so but you might get a juror who'll do it though. That's the positive.
Yeah. And
is that a tactic, Sean and Nate? That sometimes you throw something out there, and you're just kind of hoping that somebody on the jury
exactly what got him into trouble.
Yes, that is. Yeah, but you just need one. That is a consideration at times.
Yeah,
I just got to convince one person who's going to say, "Yeah, I would lose my mind too if that happened to me." You could prey on people. You could prey on their emotions. They tell the jury not to, but juries do what they want to do, and they're people, and people act how they act. And yeah, it's certainly a
first time hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I think there are legitimate cases for jury nullification in the sense that I think there's a famous example of the child blankist who accused whatever he was being escorted by marshals.
Yes, Gary Plauché
off the plane, and said the father was in a phone booth and capped the guy in front of everybody on camera. I mean, there was no question about it, and the jury said, "Yeah, not guilty."
Well, no, they actually convicted him, but they said they didn't want him to go to prison for it, and they put him on probation.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Because that was a situation with the jury's like, we really don't want to convict, but they did, and they said, "Judge, we can't send him to prison," and the judge is like, "Oh, well," and that was an issue of, I think, people probably not doing a good job about knowing they can nullify, but they could have nullified if they wanted to.
But yeah, because I know. Well, from what I remember in the DA's office, you couldn't bring up jury nullification at all. It was
Yes.
like, ethics violation. It was like horrible.
You mean a defense lawyer?
Yeah, defense lawyer. You could not bring.
There's no reason to prosecute it.
Yeah.
You can't bring it up, but you can do everything but bring it up.
Yeah, and that's just where if you had a guy out front saying, "Hey, jury, Google jury nullification."
The prosecutor can say, "Send a message. Send a message."
That's true.
Okay?
Good point.
Send a message. Did he do it or did he not do it? So obviously, listen, I'm completely now talking out of my own.
Well, didn't that stem out of the South that there was a problem where people were murdering black folks, if you will, whatever, and then the juries would say, "Yeah, not guilty, too bad," and so they got rid of being able to argue nullification, even though it would seem like hopefully we move beyond that to where jury nullification should be argued or it should be viable.
The funny part about it, jury nullification is one of those things that's totally legal, but it's illegal for you to tell them to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is just nuts in its face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would think that's part of justice is to say, do you think it's actually justified for them to do this? In other words, would you do it too? Isn't that why you have your peers?
Just jury nullification is about the law, not about the act that's going on. So in other words, I'm saying, I don't know, the jury says, we don't agree this law is law is correct. So we're going to say not guilty because we don't agree with the law. And that's what it's supposed to prevent. And it's jury rejecting the law.
Yeah, jury nullification goes back. I mean, there's a famous case of this. It's called Bushmill's case. It was in 1651. A jury refused to convict a guy, and the judge jailed the jury for almost a whole week until one of the courts above it said, "No, if that's their verdict, that's their verdict."
Yeah, I was going to say the judge should have no right to do that.
Well, it's in England, so I mean, he was doing whatever. It was a common law issue, 1651. Okay. So it's happened for a really, really long time. The government's never been okay with people. The government forfeits its monopoly on violence and monopoly on power if it allows people to nullify. So they're never going to be okay with it because they want people to follow the laws that are enacted. Yeah. So it's never really been allowed. It's just courts recognize juries will do what they do. It's just as the government has expanded its scope and power, people have realized that's a way to fight back. So that's why nowadays, if I try to bring them jury nullification, I'm going to get grieved and other things. But that's why you do as much as you can. But that
you police the police. You police the police.
Yes.
What one last thing I do want to ask you guys about, because I've been dying to get somebody else's opinion. I've been getting dragged about this case for a long time. It's I'll play the first. I'm gonna play.
I got shot for that, Nate.
Check this out.
I went there.
Oh my God.
When I first heard about the case, I assumed it would be open and shut, right? A senior citizen sitting in his own home, minding his own business, is broken into.
Oh, this guy in Minnesota.
Intruders come into his home, and this is not for the first time. He's been burglarized many times before. They come into his home to burglarize again, possibly even kill him, and he shoots them before they can shoot him, right? Open and shut. This is called the castle law in Minnesota, but it's essentially the same across the country. You're in your home, you're broken into, you can shoot the intruder to protect yourself. It didn't play out exactly that way in the case of Byron Smith. Everybody,
no, it did not.
Those of you just joining us, the verdict is in. That verdict is guilty. The homeowner has been found guilty for gunning down two intruders that come into his home.
You need to hear the recording.
Yeah, so there's a lot to this.
I remember this. I remember this case.
Yeah.
Look, it's an interesting thing. Yeah. This guy set up. Oh, go ahead.
Here it is.
Yeah.
So Smith fired.
We can't play it on YouTube, dude. Just talk about it. We can't play it here. Come on.
So what he did was he had been broken into.
This is it's
CGI
monetized. Yeah, it's monetized.
sometimes but here's the thing. Wait, stop for a second.
No,
Nate,
I'll kill it.
Nate,
Go ahead.
you're allowed to show shooting in a standalone video, but you can't show it on a live stream.
Yeah.
So there are stricter rules for a live stream than there are for this video if it's uploaded. So just because it's monetized,
I got demonetized. Yeah,
you could in theory.
I'd rather just talk about it.
We'll talk about it. It's bad enough. We can talk
So
about it.
what this guy did, I remember this case is a really interesting case. He basically he made his house into a honey trap for them to come visit him one night by taking his car and moving it around the corner to make it look as if he wasn't home so that his house would be broken into. Because his house hadn't broken down into when he was not home. So he basically tried baiting them by leaving his car elsewhere, waited down in his basement because that's the area that they had come into and like based on a couple of times with his shotgun, and recorded himself excitedly waiting for them to show up so that he could basically finish this job once and for all. The first person comes downstairs.
Up to this point, I think that's perfectly legal.
Okay.
But he's been burglarized 12 times, just so everybody understands. This is
Right.
the 12th time that they've come into his house.
When they come in, then when the first one comes downstairs, and there's the other ones, I think, is waiting outside. So one of them breaks in and comes downstairs, and he basically shoots him. And I don't even think he kills him. He drags him into the back section of the basement and leaves him there and waits for the other one to come in so that he can shoot the next one also. And he's talking to them while they're still alive. It's recorded. You can actually see it's very creepy because he seems completely psychotic. He seems like a complete like bloodthirsty lunatic. Who's thrilled about the fact that he finally has a chance to kill these people who broke into his house. So,
and then he finishes one of them off. One of them's wounded, and he says he gave her, like he talks to the police about like he finished a deer off that he hit on the side of the road.
Yes, because so the guy when he shoots and kills the guy come down the stairs, but the girl he shoots and she wounded, and while she's on the floor, the gun jams, and he reloads the gun, and she's like, "Help! I'm not armed." And then he's like, "You stupid!" But click, 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 and then coup de grace her. And that's where they said it was too much because it was like Joe was saying.
Well, yeah, that's getting insane. Okay, so let's get to a lighter, more recent example. That's not as dark, but it just happened this past week. What do you think about the weaponized Trump signs in the yards? Did you hear about that? Where people have signs in their yard and holding the sign up is a board with nails in it. And so people were driving their car, running over the signs. I would think that you have a right to put a board with nails up in your yard to hold up the sign if you want. If they're driving off the street into your yard to destroy the property, don't they deserve that to happen? What are the rules?
Booby traps are a problem.
People?
Booby traps are a problem. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, people are destroying your signs. Okay. And that's like if I took a bunch of steel poles and sharpened them up and made like cheval de frise, so your car comes in, you're gonna smack into it. You're not allowed to booby trap. You're not allowed to dig anti-tank ditches like that. If you know what's happening. Now, if you happen to have dug a really big ditch, or you're digging a hole for a tree that was coming the next day, and somebody's driving through your yard and hits it, okay, well that's their fault. Or if you happen to use a piece of plywood that had a couple of nails in it, and you're like, look. My first time I put a sign up, this is the only way I could do it real quick. That would probably be a valid argument. But for this guy, he's going to have to say, somebody kept driving through my yard, knocking over the Trump sign, so I'll show them. And that's where that becomes the issue of the booby trap.
But I think there's a fine line there, though, right? Because I could totally see why are they destroying the property? Why are they doing that? They literally are outing themselves, and the booby trap.
Eric, it's a completely you're making a completely rational argument. The policy decision has been made.
Yes,
and the decision has been made by our betters, and it's. In the vast majority of jurisdictions, just as they have made decisions about self-defense.
Yeah.
That you can't, the problem with booby traps is that the unanticipated consequence, not the problem, but one, even if you like the idea and think you bring it on yourself, There are all kinds of anticipated possibilities. There are kids. What if somebody sneezes and their car runs off the road? All kinds of things happen. And there are, famous, horror stories of people who thought that and on the other,
and there's also the issue of increasing the harm.
Yeah.
Like I make a barricade in my yard and you're just running over my Trump sign and, I buried part of a K-rail in the yard and basically I put the transmission in your lap and kill you. Is that really the proper response to my signs getting run over? And that's where society, because it does turn into proportional harm, but also protecting innocent people. That's why we can't use spring guns in homes.
That was that famous case.
Yeah, because there's a case. A firefighter tried to get into a house, is on fire, and the guy had a gun wired up to the door, and the fireman kicked in the door, and boom, it shot him.
Well, but the case I'm talking about, the California case, remember the guy had the shotgun booby trapped up, and his house was getting broken into, and they broke in and they killed the bad guys and everything, but he was still charged with murder because they said it was an overreaction to someone breaking into your home. You don't get to decide to kill them.
Well, that one's a little different, but just the idea of innocent people can get involved. Like Ron said, somebody might sneeze, go off the road. Any number of things. But that's why you have to show, if you happen to do a booby trap or a reinforcement, it's got to be kind of proactive. That I did this, like I built my mailbox and it's covered in bricks that are, concreted in place. And it's not because every other night some kid comes by with a baseball bat, which I've never done this before, but you can take a baseball bat, lean out the window of a car, and you can smash mailboxes as you go.
What about this super chat? If they had a sign in the yard saying severe tire damage, do not enter.
I don't know. I think the severe tire damage one, I think that is a little more iffy.
Because it's similar to a parking lot, right? Where if you go the wrong way out of a parking lot,
it's about reasonableness. What's reasonable? What's reasonable at that time? Building a wall, it's about reasonableness. So, and again, if like I think with Ron, it's between what Ron and Sean are saying. If you're doing it to hurt someone or to the proportionality in harms, that's what you're looking for. But putting up something that is trying to deter people from going inside there, that's something different. So. It really, I think you could put, for instance, maybe nails there. But if you have a sign that says severe tire damage, nails, be careful, don't drive here. I think that would be appropriate.
What's the fun of that?
Because then they stay away. Then all my precious nails are rusting in the yard for no reason.
But in that particular case, if the person goes and tries to drive, now they're doing it at their own risk because you've given them fair warning. So it's reasonableness that determines.
I would still not recommend doing that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Booby trapping is not a good idea, guys.
Maybe that would be a good case for a jury nullification, though, because there might be some people who say they deserved it. FAFO.
Oh, I'm sure that they might. They very well could, but you also. You also might get 12 Karens who say, "Oh my God, that was horrible." Or if they sue you in civil court, the judge might say, "No, I don't agree. The jury's wrong. You were the bad man, sir. I'm, fighting for them, not you."
You guys see the video of that woman wrestling with the Trump sign?
Oh yeah.
Jumping. I mean, psychotic. Psychotic.
Yeah, they are. Well, there's a video of that woman who was taking a sheriff's sign because he's a Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, and the guy followed her. He's like, "What are you doing here? What's going on here?" "No, that's my sign." "No, it's not." And she was just dumb as a rock. That's the funny part too. Is it's like, wait, what? All right, well, we're definitely at time here. I know Nate's got other things to do, and all these lawyers.
Nate has nothing to do. This is the biggest con in the world. Nate, I'm telling you, the guy.
What do you have coming up with that pipe?
He films a million videos, and he uses like a very small percent. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I guess I got a couple of more videos up. I have this whole big thing about because I went through this deep dive about blank by deception and how the different states are going to do it, and then some very interesting cases like the one we just heard about the woman in the hotel and all that type of stuff. So you wouldn't believe how many cases there are about this all over the world, and it's insane old stuff. But that's essentially what I'm going to be delving more into now, more of the true crime. But I think there are so many fascinating cases that have already been litigated that I think just people just aren't aware of. So that's what I'm going to be into. So because I love the fact when somebody says, "Wow, that actually happened." So like one of my next videos is the woman in Oklahoma who's on the phone with the cops with her baby in her arm, and she has a shotgun. I don't know how she has all three, but she has a shotgun on the door, and she's literally on the phone with 911 saying, "Hey, 2 men are trying to break into my house. If they come in, can I shoot them?" And the person on 911 is like, "I can't tell you what to do, but you have to protect your family." And the guys come through the door. What do you think happened to her? So stuff like that, which I think is fascinating, how the law treats these particular situations.
Yeah,
that's a good question because it's they didn't tell her don't do it.
They couldn't tell her to do it. They couldn't tell her not to do it. They just said you got to do what you got to do.
But they kind of gave permission, though. In a way, it sounds like to me like you have to do what you need to protect your family. Sounds
like a yes to you.
Yeah.
Boom, boom,
Well,
boom.
I mean, what else could it be? They didn't explicitly say do not do it, right? They didn't say you cannot do it. It's illegal to do it. They said you got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do what you got to do is giving her permission if she feels in enough threat, in my opinion.
But now the guys sue the county.
I can see that. I can see.
Like you're saying, they told her to do it, right? What do you do? You know. So again, there's the civil ramifications for all these stuff where their rights violated in this particular instance. I would say no, but there's an argument to be made here. So.
All right, well, since Nate's first because he's also a co-admin on this, I'm just going to go ahead and go in the order because I've got to pimp my new channel. We just hit 10,000 subscribers today.
Nice.
7 weeks in for proven conspiracies.
That's amazing.
I'm so thrilled about it. There's a lot of cool things coming up. I just did a video about weather manipulation that came out this week. It is true. Weather actually has been manipulated by the government.
Mm-hmm.
It's a factual thing.
I actually shared your video, that video of weather manipulation last night.
That was great. Stream. That was great.
I shared it last night on my stream and we watched it together because this was RFK Jr. is talking. Had someone on yesterday where he was talking about this issue. You're not just covering proven conspiracies, but you're actually covering things to the extent possible that are highly timely because this is something a lot of people are talking about right now. Everyone should make sure they check out that channel. He does a great dive on it. I polled my audience so they believe that the government is manipulating the weather, and it came out. I gave 4 choices of yes, probably not, and no. And between probably and yes, 75% of my audience is convinced that the government is controlling, is at least manipulating. Or
attempting to. Absolutely.
Yeah,
well, there was a treaty created because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't create a treaty because it's not happening. It's like,
no.
Wait a minute. You did this on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. You did this in Vietnam. What's going on? But that's coming up.
I'm so sorry, guys. The bosses have come inside here, so I got to go because we're supposed to be left at 12.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Nate.
Brother.
See you, Nate.
Have a good one, Nate.
Thank you so much.
Easy fast.
And also, so coming up, that's what just happened. Tomorrow will be Operation Paperclip, which is one of the biggest scandals in the history of the CIA. Something we all have to live with to this day, the ramifications of 1,600 Nazis that were brought into the United States to assist us with technology. That's
defeating
tomorrow.
Communism.
With defeating communism, but those war crimes are partially on our hands now too. We get a little bit of blood in that. And then Monday will be the Columbus conspiracy. Time for the holiday. So
I hope you
guys consider checking it out.
Are you going to cover Operation Mockingbird?
Already did.
You did? Okay, I didn't say.
Actually, twice. I covered Operation Mockingbird and then something that I've dubbed Social Media Mockingbird.
Wow. You're staying busy, man.
Yeah, it doesn't say because it never went away. They just changed. They shortcutted the process. They just threw all their glowies on TV.
Or they just recruited the companies to do it themselves, like the Jack Dorseys of the world. You don't need to infiltrate with the CIA. They just literally scheduled meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but nobody has standing. Oh well.
That's
for sure. So I appreciate it. And of course. This channel will be nice, if you guys like this legal kind of stuff that we're doing. I try to do it. It used to be every Friday. Now it's most Fridays because lawyers have been busy, and then there's these Jewish holidays, and it's just like I'm having a tough time. But
how did the Jews get anything done? We're so remarkably lacking in, in productivity. Thanks for throwing Hunch's comment up there. Thanks for the super chat.
Definitely.
In my opinion, that would not be a problem.
That's a way to do it, Ann. Yeah, my cinder block delivery came, and I just didn't mow the yard.
From Antifa Cinder Blocks Incorporated.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, John. You missed an opportunity to
hide your mouth.
Okay, fair enough. All right, but anyway, Ron, what do you have coming up?
Holidays. I mostly have holidays. I've got this week I released a solo edition of the Culmination podcast where I answered questions from listeners, which I think people will find to be an interesting break from my interrupting guests. And other than that, the week after that, we will have a, I do try to, I've pulled back from a weekly Culmination podcasts so that because I believe that there's more content for me to pull out that I don't get to do when it's just a week at a time. So, I'll have another guest the week after. And other than that, really just trying to not miss litigation deadlines while, out of the office for 2 days of a week of the next 2 weeks.
Okay. And Sean, what do you have coming up?
I got a couple of pre-produced videos I'm going to be putting out. Hopefully this weekend should be a lot of fun. But yeah, this weekend just got a lot of work to do myself. So
awesome. That was quick. Joe.
Yeah, not too fancy.
Is here who basically have nothing to tell you about what we're gonna do. That's essentially what you're hearing here. I also plan on putting out content. Should be fun. Make sure you check it out. I do produce content on it. I do live stream every night. I think most people know that by now. But like Ron, so like the next couple of weeks, either of us are going to be here the next couple of Fridays because it ends up being a Jewish holiday. I already gave Eric a heads up that I'll be back. Hopefully, I'll hopefully be able to be back the first week in November, right before the election. So I think November 1st is what it is. Yeah. So yeah, so that's but I'm really very strongly into covering the election developments that are happening and all the breaking stories. We're all waiting eagerly for what the October surprise is going to be. It's almost and perhaps it's going to be with respect to North Carolina and different states affected by the hurricane and their ability and what's going to happen with their elections and how those are going to be operating. But you certainly know that this coming month, these coming few weeks, there's definitely going to be some wonky stuff that's happening. So check it out.
Oh, and somebody in chat was asking. Yes, I was set to have a trial this morning, guys. My client didn't show, so that was really quick. So I don't have to worry about it.
But it's not legal advice, but you would probably advise clients to show up for their own trial.
Oh, right? Yes, show up for your court dates, guys. Don't blow it off like it's the dentist.
And I do want to say, those of you who are in affected areas, that you should please make sure that you take all responsible steps to stay safe. You don't never play around with weather disasters. It seems like you always think like, especially if it's not an area that's commonly hit, you sort of underestimate the potential hazards of this sort of thing, and then all of a sudden, God forbid, it's terrible. So prayers for those of you who are in affected areas or have loved ones in the affected areas, and urge everyone to stay safe.
All right, that's a great point to leave on. Everybody, thank you so much. Please subscribe below, and we'll see you soon.
So long, guys.
Bye, everybody.